Oh, thank you.
I believe that we are just preparing. It's going to take another 20 seconds.
Well, I know the recording has started.
The recording is starting, but it's saying it's still preparing the live.
Oh, I see. Like getting onto Facebook itself. Yes.
Yeah, so actually I'm just going to check and see. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and get it started, and if there's any delay, then I'll link the Zoom recording, but
Sure.
because it's telling me it's still preparing, and I'm not sure why. But I think I'm also showing that we're on live. So welcome, everybody. I'm Diana Lockett. Welcome to Realign to Thrive with Facebook Live. My purpose, my intention, my mission with this platform is to be able to give heart-centered leaders an opportunity to communicate their message, to share their wisdom, to talk about what they're doing in the world and why they're doing it in the world. And today I have an amazing young woman with me. Yendre is a naturopathic doctor, right, by trade,
Yes.
and
Yes.
has been providing support and a mission and a statement so clear to help empower parents, but more importantly, to help empower children in the world today. And so she has been spending some time helping to educate parents how to communicate with children, how to promote their children's wisdom, because we know our children all have intuitive wisdom. But if we're conditioned and we've been imprinted with a different way of parenting, sometimes we forget that or we don't even awaken to it. So Yendre's here today to share her heart leadership vision of how we can support children, how we can support families to be able to come together in a way that really honors and support the intuitive heart wisdom of all of our children. So thank you and welcome, Yendre.
Oh, thank you so much for this opportunity. You're exactly right. You got it right on.
And I wasn't reading your bio. I read it last night, and today I went a little bit off of from what I remembered and what I know about you to be so true and real. So
Yeah.
thank you so much for being here. And I would love to ask you,
Yes.
tell us a little bit more about the work that you do, and also what brought you to this work. So if you want to share a little bit about your story, your teachings, whatever brought you evolved into this work from a natural path to the work that you're doing, and are they different or are they the same?
Well, aren't we all in a trajectory of it's all connected, right? Everything leads to another. So I'll just share a little bit where I am now, and then I'll sort of go backwards in connecting the dots for you.
Mhm.
So right now, I'm really excited in wanting to work with parents who want to raise intuitive children. And what that means is really allowing children to be themselves, because I feel when we're born, we are embodied in spirit, and our intuition is part of the way that spirit communicates with us. And I would like parents to begin to understand how to honor this language that we all actually have to communicate with. We're using it all the time. This is how parents can read the messages from their babies when they can't speak, when there's nonverbal language, to meet their needs and wants. And you can feel the emotions. So you're extremely, exquisitely, tenderly connected in that way, in being sensitive to one another. And this is meant to be long lasting for the rest of our life. It's
Yeah.
not just so that is when they couldn't talk yet, right? And that's what I really hope to bring our awareness and acceptance that this is a natural part of a human experience, that maybe one day we just know it to be a fact, that is a natural part of our innate nonverbal language that universally allow us to tune into so much information. And so we're like not using our full potential in that way. So that's my desire. But it also gives confidence to parents, because parenting is a very challenging role. There's like no manual. There's no, like, we just sort of fumble and figure it ourselves, and feel like we're messing up all the time, and we're feeling hard on ourselves. Like, there's so much stuff that goes on emotionally for parents, and I want to support them in that, to recognize that your child is going to help guide you. Like it's a partnership. It's a partnership. You don't have to think like you need to know it all. But if you honor your child will show you how to parent them. So in some way, it's like you can figure out your parenting manual, and each child needs their own.
And each child, I love that, because each child really is co-contributing to the parenting manual. And it's such an evolved way of thinking from parenting. Just last week, I was doing a coaching session with an adult child and her mother. And at the end of the session, I said to the mother, I want you to make a list of all the ways that your child has taught you, all the things your child has taught you. And she said, what do you mean? My child doesn't teach me. It's my job to teach them. And I always remember Wayne Dyer, who's one of my favorite spiritual teachers, said that, children are born these beautiful, open-hearted wisdom sources. And parents say, thank you, God, I'll take it from here. And they start to layer and imprint. And I use the word imprinting. We imprint based on what we know. And we do that until we know that there's another way. So I don't want parents to feel after this conversation, shoot, I've been doing it wrong, or, like, okay, I messed up my kid, whatever. We do the best we can based on what we know. And what we're doing now is having a conversation to help to create a new way of being, the possibilities based on intuitive, natural wisdom. You don't have to, it doesn't have to be so hard.
Exactly. So I'm going to actually paint that picture for parents so they can do this with more ease, because your child is really coming from a more spiritual, like the emptiness, the void, so they're bringing this freedom to create. They're the source of creation, not just literally, but symbolically to you. It's a gift for you to free up all the knots and bound upness that you have been conditioned by this world we live in. And they're going to give this, open your perspective by your willingness to let your child lead you, to see that you are mutually teacher and student to one another, that no one is really the expert. I think that word is odd in some ways, because it's just an elevation of ego, right? And the thing is, let your child lead you. It would, the stress you feel is because you think you have this job that you have to know it all. You have to, the child is capable of leading you to discover things that you need to be reminded of, because we all got crusty, right? And not, so your child has this gift for showing you stuff that you've forgotten. And if you don't think you need to have all the answer, know it, you'll see it. And then it's so freeing for your child to be accepted, to be who they are. And they have the answers they need to know how to make themselves happy. They do. We, in fact, all do. It's just ideas sold to us that we need to be that thing that causes us to, not live true to ourselves. And that is the source of the unhappiness, right? So I hope that helps, how the union of a parent and a child is to bring more like heaven to you, and you're mutually mixing and growing together.
Absolutely. Yes. We all get so conditioned, and those conditions get passed on, and they get passed on generationally. And until we're aware of it, until we can literally stop and say, wow, look at this belief that I'm holding, this belief that I need to control, that I need to teach, that I'm holding that belief. Where does it come from? And is it truly my belief? And I don't call them, Vishen Lakyami from Mind Valley calls these rules, which are bullshit rules. Why are we continuing to bring those forward into our lives and into our parenting?
Yes.
And it's not to say that children don't have limits, and that we don't help to teach them boundaries and make good decisions. I don't want people to hear that children are just given this free-spirited, no boundaries kind of life, which Barbara Coloroso would call a jellyfish parent. We need to give boundaries because our kids look to us, and then we need to let them have their spirits intact.
I think you're right.
Within, like, to be able to parent with integrity, so the child walks away from the situation feeling, I've been heard, I'm loved, maybe I messed up, and yet I'm still a perfectly intact, whole, complete, loving representation of the divine.
And that's what you want your children to see in you. that you can mess up. And
Yeah.
that's part of life. And so that you just continue practicing and you'll get better just by practice, right?
Yeah.
And also, as a parent, you aren't meant to be the guide. There is a task for you,
Yeah.
right? And you need to, there are things that you teach that requires you to transmit that. But there's certain things because, we need a container. All the structures you have helps shape your child. I mean, you read the signs your child's need and you create structure. And that is very powerful tool, and we all adults need to live that way too, in terms of honoring our bodies and our needs that way. But it's so you teach your child that part, and that's really fundamental because there are skills that are meant to be transmitted and that will help your child. But in terms of the child, like their brains are so fertile, right? It's so fertile soil the first 6 years of their lives, so whatever you plant there, it will grow. So if you don't know you have lies in you that you're telling your child, then they believe those lies too, right?
Mhm.
And if you kind
And you
of
don't even have to speak them. You just show them, right? Like your actions, this is an opportunity where your actions speak louder than
Absolutely.
words. So
Yes.
notice what your actions are. Notice where you're closed. Notice where
Yes.
you're judging. Notice where you're holding resentment. Notice where you're holding fear. These are all the unspoken things. So Yendre talked about the nonverbal. And as a communication coach for 30 years, what I've worked with primarily is nonverbal kids. And these nonverbal kids have so much to teach us, but we have to transmit our open heart, our open energy. And if we meet them with closure, then they're going to take that on as their own.
Yes, yes, you're so right that in fact, if you let go of the language, I actually encourage, if parents are comfortable, not worry about and if there's no real issue for the child in developing language, not to worry that they have to learn language so quickly. Because in fact, once you have that language, you don't rely on the other senses that are giving you so much information, right?
Mm.
And also the child um, will they are modeling after you more than what you say. So that's what's so challenging, confronting for a parent, because like you realize, if you are not an example, you can only lie to fool the child for so long until they're teenagers and they see through everything, and then
Yeah.
they think you're a hypocrite, and then of course the relationship begins to be wobbly because you didn't have good foundations.
Yeah.
And then they lose respect, right? And so that's really hard to have a relationship when there's no respect there.
Yeah.
So yeah, you get a chance to learn. You get a chance to do your spiritual work. Your child's gifting you so many things that
Your child is essentially a mirror for you. So when you
yes,
see, like this family that I did a coaching session with last week, when the mom said, "All I want is respect," and the child said, the child who's an adult, "All I want is respect." The
yes,
mom is commanding it. The child is yearning for it, and they don't see how close they are to what they
yes.
need
They
and
want
how
the
to
same
get there,
things.
right? They want the same things.
They do. They
Mhm,
do. I mean,
mhm.
we all want the same things. We
Yeah,
just want to be loved for who we are.
yeah,
We want to be heard and seen. We want to be accepted for how we make choices. Like want to have free will and autonomy to decide for ourselves.
yeah.
And when you do that, it gets easier as a parent. It's easier. The job is easier.
In very classical yoga traditions, because I'm a yoga teacher trainer, in classical yoga traditions, there's this belief, this is from the Patanjali Sutras, that we are bound beings seeking freedom. That there is
Yes.
something essentially wrong the day we were born. We've inhabited this body, and this body comes with ego, and it's a problem. In the traditions, in the way that I teach, and the way that I coach, we are free beings seeking boundaries.
Yes.
And that's the Tantric
Yes.
tradition. We are born free. We have freedom to make whatever decisions we make. And if you don't believe that, then you're living in the bound state, because you could get up tomorrow and you could walk to California and take months to get there and live there if you really wanted to. Well, maybe not during COVID, but in regular times, right? You can choose to do whatever work you want. You can
Yes. Yes.
choose to have any conversations you want in the world. Like, we are so free. So what our
I
kids
know.
need is for us to show them, first of all, that freedom is their birthright. That's how they came into the
Yes.
world.
Yes.
And then we get to help them to learn how to set boundaries so that they can stay healthy, right? Like, we don't want our
Yep.
kids just eating anything and, gaming and watching TV 24/7. Like, we help them to recognize and establish healthy boundaries. And at the end of the day, can you look at your child and say, you are essentially the universe embodied? And I'm going to tell you, be careful when you have that belief about your child, because I have that belief about my children. So when I say to my kids when they were younger, I have that belief that we are all the universe embodied. In other words, we are all God representations, whatever the God of your understanding is. And I said to my kids very, very early on, if I catch myself in my brule, the universe doesn't revolve around you. You know, when they're little and they want everything and they want it now. And I'd say, the universe doesn't revolve around you. And then I'd stop and I'd say, oh, wait a second. Yes, it does. Yes, it does. Okay, sorry. Let me listen. Let me pay attention, right? Because they are the universe embodied. And so now they bring that back to me. They remind
I think there's a
me
lot
of
of
the teaching.
distinction. Yeah, what you're pointing out, there's a lot of layer there, right? Because we're talking about entitlement and also having the child learn independence and also skills, right? So there's a lot of things that's wrapped up in that perspective. But I think the element of the universe is that you have the power to access so much, right?
And that
to
you are a God representation, that there's a God representation in you, and who you are matters, what you say matters, what you do matters.
Yes.
And it doesn't matter less because you're 7 years old. In fact, it probably matters more when you're 7 years old and you have someone that can mirror and say, you go, you do, you know, what do you want to imagine in your life? What do you want to believe in your life?
I think it might help if we just see it as a dance, you know, like there's this passing on of things between the two of you. And that way you're flowing with stuff instead of having certain expectation and fixation, because we kill off things the moment we judge it has to be a certain way, right? And as a result, we have expectation and we want to control. And that itself is death. So you're not allowing your child to expand. As you said, the universe has so much possible ways, and to let your child give you a new perspective, you know, like be still and just observe, like be still and observe, and then you can see much more than what you thought existed. So that's a gift. Yeah.
And I love that invitation to be still and observe. I see new parents today who are nursing their children like this on their phones. Or they're asking questions like, in the middle of the 3 a.m. feedings, who has a suggestion of what podcast I can listen to? And I feel like we have an addiction. That is an addiction that we're not even aware of. There's an addiction that we cannot even be still with these little miracles that we have birthed. And every single one is a miracle, because it's a 1 in 400 billion chance that any one of us would be here today. And somehow we deny ourselves. And really, as a parent, we're denying ourselves the opportunity to remember the miracle that they are and the miracle that we are when we are so distracted.
I do workshops with my patient that work with me regarding understanding the moment you're in is really all you have. And so there is a practice about being present, and really your child helps bring you that presence, because you're witnessing. They're always present, right? Until they develop their analytical mind and all that stuff. But so your child is showing you how to be present. You naturally will be. just you know, your nature will want to be present. But if you're kind of find yourself bored or need to be busy, or I mean that itself, the analytical mind trying to do its stuff, you're losing the opportunity to practice presence.
And it's not that they're not present, because they're present, but what are you present to? What are you choosing
exactly.
to be present
you're always
to,
present, right? It's about where you put your attention. I mean, you're always physically present, but then it's the where you want to direct it.
Beautiful, beautiful. And my invitation is always, let your presence be from here, not from here, right? Like your heart, your open, expanded potential of your heart to be present. And in those moments, oh, it's beautiful. It's so beautiful.
You know, it takes practice. It takes practice.
And you know what's the funny thing is, I totally agree with you. It takes practice, and yet that's our natural state.
Yes,
but we have been taught out of it. We have learned to go out of it. So we have to come back to practicing what is our natural state. And it's such a bit of a mind mess, because we think there's something wrong, but really this is fully right. And yes, we have to practice because we live in a society where other things have become more valuable, are given more value from here than from here. I want to ask you, because I'm really clear about this for myself. What are the gifts that your children, what are the gifts? You have 2 children, right?
I do.
What is each child, what is the one gift that they've given you? The gift of remembering what in yourself.
Oh yeah, every child gives you something, and just being a parent opens up so many. So yeah, each child is different. My God, they're so different. Mine. I think my son. Uh, I love seeing what a sensitive, tender child he is, and because he's a boy, I know that all men have these qualities too, and I just want to make him know that they're perfectly normal, natural things that they don't need to be conditioned out because it would mean you're not a boy or a man if you cry, if you're sensitive, if you're. So he's very in touch with his emotions. He's know how to acknowledge them. So I help him with that. But yeah, he loves to snuggle. That's his superpower.
How old's your son?
He's 9.
Oh,
Yeah, I love to
lovely.
snuggle. And
Amazing.
I just want also men to recognize, embody these parts. It's so important for us to be whole and have good relationships. And my daughter, her gift to me is that I have to let everything go. I mean, I have to really watch my expectations because I have to let her say no to me about things that I may have preference. Like I have a certain I guess uh and learn not to be having any favorites, right? Which I feel I've practiced my child understand how they're loved for who they are and that they want different things, and it's not to make it equal, and that so yeah, she teach me to accept her as she is because it's a challenge. She's very different from me, right?
Beautiful.
Yeah,
So she's taught
makes
you
me
acceptance.
expand.
Yeah.
Yes, I mean acceptance in a level of my values,
Yeah.
my assumption that this is what, and I feel like, okay, she's a different person, I have to
Okay.
accept that. you
Yeah.
know
Yeah.
yeah.
My kids, I'm super clear. My daughter has taught me patience, and my son has taught me forgiveness,
Oh
because he's the
wow.
most forgiving child I've ever met, forgiving human I've ever met. And every
Oh,
time
I
I
love
see him
it.
forgive, I remember that it's a quality that I want to embody.
Yeah,
So my
yeah,
invitation to any of the listeners is
yeah.
spend time with your kids and start to ask
Yes,
yourself, what is the greatest gift that they are teaching me today? Because when you start to see them in that light, you will let go of your defenses, your shoulds, your rules, all the things that you think that you're here to impose on them. And you will land in a
yes.
state of beautiful, loving presence in your heart where you can welcome their gifts. And you mentioned no,
Yes.
your daughter's saying no. And I tell all parents, and as a speech language pathologist, when I hear that child at the age of 2 say their first no, or 18 months, I say that is a time to have a party, because that is your child
Yes,
expressing their boundaries. And we want to
yes.
teach, remember, we're
You
free
do.
seeking
You
boundaries.
do.
So that's
Yes.
the child saying, I am establishing a boundary here. And the parents' sole job there is to ask themselves, is it a safe no? And if it is,
Yeah,
let them do it. Let them
exactly.
do it. And if you
Yeah.
don't want them to say no, don't ask a yes, no question. I'm gonna use my parenting speech pathologist hat. Make it
Yeah.
this or that question. So it's not, do you want to wear, do you want to go to the store with me now? Do you want to go to the store with me now? And they say no. What do you do? Instead, it's, do you want to go now or in 3 minutes? Right? So you give them the
Yeah.
options.
Yes.
Wonderful.
Yes.
Love it. And I love this
Absolutely.
conversation, and I love the honoring of the child. It's been my life journey, my life purpose, working with
Yes.
children,
Yes.
seeing, and the children that I've worked with have primarily been in special education environments, and just seeing so many beautiful opportunities for me to learn from them, because they are present much more than any of us are as adults. And so we have so much to learn from them when we could get out of our own way and just
Yes.
welcome their loving presence.
Yes.
Wonderful.
They're showing us. They're showing us.
Always.
And in terms of me doing my work, is that I didn't feel my spirit was honored as a child, right? So that's how come I want to, I guess my work is about honoring the spirit as well, and helping people connect their intuition,
Yeah. Our
and
pain is
nature.
always, our pain
Yeah.
becomes our purpose. And
Yeah.
if we're willing to see it and take that step towards it. So I acknowledge you as a heart-centered leader who's taken those steps to see what was and what's possible, and bringing that into the world. Because a lot of people will stay in the pain, and then
Mhm.
the pain doesn't transform. When you take your pain and turn it into purpose and mission and passion in your life, let's go passion, mission, purpose in that order,
Mhm.
then you start to transform your pain. Beautiful. Thank you. I'm going to ask you, where can people find you? How can they engage in this conversation with you and learn more?
Well, I love conversation like this because it's an opportunity to plant seeds, right? And so I have a platform on Facebook called Inner Guidance. It's just a space where I share wisdom, and people can participate and ask questions. But I just want people to really connect with themselves in a spiritual way. So it's a fun space for me to constantly contribute and give. And I also belong to a online community called Happy Healthy Women. And in there, I share much more my professional knowledge. So I have a group called Parents Confessionals. So it's a space for parents to come and confess whatever is challenging and bothering them, and just help one another, to support. And there's a tools I use in terms of working with parents, and they can leave with some tips and ideas to help in their job as a parent.
I love that. Having a non-judgmental space for parents to go to, moms specifically, because it's a women's group, a women's group for moms to go to and know that it's okay, that you're okay. And we can let go of the guilt, particularly that maybe you didn't know better, or maybe you did do something that you feel wasn't the best you showing up. And then we get to release that and move forward, because when we hold on to it, it turns to shame. And that's always going to let you show up in a way that is not going to be healthy for parenting. So go and check out this group. So how do they just do they go to your Happy
I
Healthy
can add to the link, or and the bottom line is just that there's nothing wrong with us, right?
Yeah. Oh, there's nothing wrong with us. No,
we might be missing skills. We might need to develop some stuff, but in of ourselves, there's nothing wrong. And that's sort of what got introduced early on, because the parents mad and we think it's our fault. And so that's a great beginning to just realize that.
Okay, so we'll put the links. We'll put the links with this interview. We'll put the links, and then you can go ahead and join the Inner Guidance program, and you can join the Happy Healthy Women Facebook group. And I love the idea.
And they're all free, so just come on.
Let's continue to support each other as women. Let's show up in the world from our hearts and help to empower and raise children that have the wisdom and the knowledge and the self-assurance to be who they are. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Yendre, for being here today.
As well.
Oh, I'm so happy that you were here, and I'll look forward to chatting with you soon.
Yes, me too.
Thank you, everybody, for being here today. All right, I'm gonna